Hi team, Richard Greer here, CP Media. We're here with Matt Sherwood. He's going to jump into the show in any second now. There he is. And this tonight's show is proudly brought to you by Solomon and Team CP, your endurance coaching specialist. Matt, you're leading the charge tonight, pushing the buttons, making sure you keep me in line and going in the right direction. How are you getting on tonight?
Yeah, good, thanks. Yeah, and for people that are watching the show tonight, we've got some really cool guests. If you're watching this on Facebook, throw some comments up. We'll see what they are during the course of the evening, and we can maybe answer some of your questions. But yeah, really looking forward to hearing how it really was in the real world. Pretty easy to watch this race from the computer and watch the dots cruising along, but yeah, really cool. Keen to hear what really goes on.
Yeah, so we're talking Godzone tonight, aren't we? And it is tough watching Godzone via the computer to actually get a feel what actually is happening there and how tough it actually is or good it actually is, etc. And in terms of where teams are racing and how they're managing themselves and who are going well and not so well. So yeah, really keen to get a bit of an insight from our guests and also the race director. We're going to talk to Warren Bates tonight, have a bit of a chat to him about what it is actually like to try and manage athletes, competitors over, I don't know, they must be spread out over at least 400 kilometres of an actual course, which must be a bit of an undertaking, a little bit stressful. Yeah. We're going to have a chat to Pattie, who had a crack at Godzone and what her experience is about in terms of getting to the actual start line. That was a challenge, and then getting her and her team in one piece to the finish line. And then we're also going to have a chat to Sophie Hart, Godzone winner, team, part of Team Avaya, and get a bit of a feel for what her team and of Stu Lynch, Nathan Fave and Chris Forne, what they were about and how they actually kind of continuously do this kind of event in, event out, year in, year out, and sort of just really set the bar across the world, really, in terms of how good these guys are. It's impressive, isn't it?
Oh, it sure is. And yeah, as you say, just time and time again, I guess they're just so dialed in. And I guess you hear the stories. We talk about it on different podcasts about, I guess particularly with Coast to Coast, and a lot of it's around being efficient and being organised. And these guys, you see them at the pointy end of the field, and they are just, it's a pleasure to watch almost. They're just so in the zone of what has to go on, and it doesn't seem to matter, I guess, from the outside whether you're seeing them at the first transition or the last one, getting to the finish line. It's they're just like a clock. It's really cool to see.
Yeah, that's right. That teamwork and how they actually work with each other, and also want to have a chat to Sophie just about how she actually prepared for this thing. She's a doctor. She's got a couple of kids. She's got busy to be able to actually prepare to be able to keep up with the rest of the guys. So fantastic athlete, but also just real life, how that works for her as well.
Yeah, cool. Let's bring her on the show, eh?
Yep, sounds good.
Sophie, how are you tonight?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm good. Thanks for having me. That's a bit of an introduction.
Excellent. Whereabouts are you reporting live for us from tonight, Sophie?
I am reporting live from our balcony in the Marlborough Sounds. It's a beautiful, still, calm evening here, looking out over the water, so it's nice.
Fantastic. Good. I was just about to ask you for a weather report, but you've already given me that. That's fantastic. Very good, very good. And I mentioned you've got a couple of young kids as well. Are they dealt with? Are they in bed? Are they sort of settled down, or are they quite happy to be outside right now?
50% strike rate there. Yeah, 1 out of 2. Yeah, we had a wee fall out of bed incident earlier, so that kind of put a spanner in the works. But I think we're on track now. Yeah.
Okay, nice work.
We may have some interruptions.
Okay, well, that's all part of the fun of it as well, isn't it? How are you going? Like, the event finished a week and a half ago. How's the recovery been so far? Were you back to work on Monday? How are you feeling now?
Yeah, I feel pretty fine now. And in actual fact, it kind of feels like it never even happened. We finished the race on Thursday, and just, with COVID and all the restrictions around, there not being any prize giving or any gatherings afterwards, our whole team sort of left Dunedin on Friday, and we got home on Saturday, and we had Sunday here, and then I was back at work on Monday. And so, yeah, really, feels like it was eons ago already. So yeah, and I'm feeling pretty well recovered just from a day-to-day basis. I wouldn't want to be going out doing any sort of heavy training at the moment. That's still a while away, I think.
Yeah. Nice. So how long does it usually take you to recover from something like this? Like, it's a big toll on your body based on all that sleep deprivation and just aside from that, just the physical challenge of a massive week as well. How does it usually take?
Well, I guess it kind of depends on the race, but I guess sort of broad brush, I'd usually expect about a week of just being really tired early in the evenings. And then the second week that sort of resolves a bit, and maybe I would start doing just some gentle sort of half an hour jogs if I felt like it, or just, some easy pedals. And that's just purely for mental health, because I enjoy it, not really for any physical benefit. And then starting like in terms of actual being physically ready to train again, that's usually about a month after an event like this.
Yeah, fantastic. So can you just give us a bit of an overview, a bit of a recap on what the event was about? Like, as I mentioned to Matt right at the start, like it's tough to watch your diet and get a feel for what's happening and try to see some updates that come through on social media, and they're always so much sparser than what you ever want them to be. It's tough to be able to actually cover this epic event. So give us a bit of a sort of overview of how it sort of unfolded for you guys.
I think obviously we knew it was going to be a long course. We'd been warned about that for months and months in advance. It's the 10th anniversary. They wanted to make a real, challenge, and they'd made that quite clear. So we started reasonably conservatively, quite conservatively, just with the knowing that it was, we were probably going to be out there for sort of 5 to 7 days. And then I think we just sort of, I don't know, the days just turned into a complete blur. Usually the first 24 hours, it's like, oh my God, this race is going to be so long. We're going to be out here forever. And then you just get into this rhythm, and then all of a sudden day 2, day 3, day 4 are gone, and you can finally sort of eye up the finish line. We sort of, we were really pleased with the way things went. We had a fairly smooth race. We had no major sort of hiccups along the way. So it was good.
Yeah, good stuff. So like for you guys, is it a team tactic to always kind of try and get to the front early and try and be out of sight, out of mind? Is that what you guys sort of try and shoot for? Because it tends to be what kind of happens.
Yeah, and certainly I think that's what people people have definitely said that in the past, and that's what some people think, but it's definitely not. Sometimes we just find ourselves out in the front, but particularly internationally, when you're at the World Champs and things, we'd actually prefer probably to be sitting back in 3rd and 4th a lot of the time. We don't try to get to the front at all. And in the longer races, it's sort of, that's a really bad race plan to try and get to the front early, because there's such a lot of course.
Yes. So is it just naturally out of sort of Chris's excellent navigation and not really making any mistakes, and just you're being efficient, that you're able to just kind of
exactly. It's just efficiency really, and Chris's nav, and because we're not traveling faster than the teams around us necessarily, or definitely not on the first day. There's teams out there that are pushing hard and going faster than us, but you go hard, you get a bit frazzled and you make mistakes, and then it's always a little bit you get quite despondent when all of a sudden, you think you're out in front and you're trying really, really hard, and then you turn around and all the other teams are right there again because you've been, flustered and made these mistakes that you don't need to be making on the first day.
And how do you find that yourself? Like in an event with 3 other guys, and you're in that team, like, do you find yourself in that first day, maybe not so much this time because it was going to be a longer event and maybe you've been a bit slower, but do you find yourself redlining sometimes? Because that's tough at the start of it like that.
No, definitely. Definitely. There's been adventure races where I have been redlining. I've got memories of redlining coming up through the Homer Tunnel on our bikes. I think that was in the first Godzone, and the shorter races that are 4 days, absolutely, the pace is hot. Over the years, I have learned some strategies to try and sort of minimize my energy output, really tucking myself in behind the guys on the bike, and even running, I just sort of shuffle along behind them sort of at a good distance so I can kind of cut corners and, just kind of micro adjust from the back. So I've learned strategies along the way to sort of manage that a little bit. Yeah, but it's absolutely, definitely not. And you're 100% right. Not in this race. The first day was nice and steady and slow. And in particular, because I was sort of carrying a bit of a cough going into the event, we started out quite conservatively as well, which was good.
Yeah, nice work. So, I mean, an adventure race compacts a lot of life into 1 week, isn't it? Often the highs are absolutely amazing, and on the other hand, the lows can be pretty tough. So, have
Yeah.
you got one or two of those lows? Like your first little intro, as I said, summarize a race for us. It sounded like, oh yeah, it was pretty good, thanks. So, but I'm sure there was a sort of sticky moments, or didn't all exactly go to plan, or you were just in the hurt locker at some point. Any of those that spring to mind?
Yeah, I think the biggest lows are mental challenges. Physically things hurt at times. I think for me, probably the biggest low was on the first night. And if anybody's read Nathan's race report, they would have read about that. It was really quite strange. I think it was just a combination of factors going into the event, just feeling like it's quite a sort of self-indulgent activity to be doing, and leaving work at a time where things were really taking off in terms of COVID. I guess, I've left my husband, Nick, and, we've got a big building project ahead of us here. And I guess I just really struggled mentally to get into a race mindset. In the past, I've been able to sort of switch that. And I know before Eco Challenge, in Fiji, I had the same thing in the few days leading up to the race, sort of questioning why I was there and what I was doing. But I can really recall having sort of that distinctive change in mindset, that actually I'd made that decision to be here. There was no point being all negative about it, because that was then just going to be a complete waste of time. And I kind of backed myself to do the same with this race, but I just didn't quite get there before the event. And that first night was really long, and there was sort of a lot of time spent mulling over those sorts of things, and just sort of questioning really what the purpose of the whole thing was. But then the sun came up, and then we pit grafted down the pike, and then we had a lot of laughs and ate a bit of food, and the rest of the race was quite good.
Yeah, good. I guess a lot of that is often talked out. Like, obviously Nick is super supportive, and you guys have you've got a network around you, which helps that to happen. And probably that's the conversation that you wanted to have him there to have a chat, just to go, what am I doing? Would that be
Totally. And, I have conversations with him in my head when I'm out there, and he would just say, don't be ridiculous, you're doing great, keep going. And but yeah, and the funny thing is that we were all quite quiet that night, and I really thrive on the energy of my teammates. And, we do have a lot of laughs out there, and that's what really keeps my spirits up. And there wasn't really any banter going on, and I didn't actually realize until we started talking about it the next day that actually Chris and Nathan were all sort of in a similar position. They were all sort of feeling a little bit kind of, and Chris had a 10-day-old baby at home, so he would have felt really kind of pulled, I think, in both directions. Yeah.
But once you're into it, committed, and then you've probably chatted through that.
Totally. Yeah.
All in. Sleep is a key part of any adventure race. How did you guys do that this year? And I guess, has that sleep strategy evolved over the years as you've done it better? Are you finding yourself maybe sleeping more than what you used to, just to race better and make less mistakes? How's that go for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think this year we the longer races are quite good. I quite like them, because you get into such your own little rhythm within your team, and you do get to indulge in slightly longer sleeps. So the first night we didn't sleep at all, but that was really just because we didn't start until 12, middle of the day. So if we'd started early in the morning, we probably would have slept that first night as well. And then after that, we sort of just had good chunks of sleep each night, 3 to 4 hours, or our sleeps were. I think when, going back a few years now, we probably didn't sleep as much. And I, in particular, was always reluctant to sleep, sort of in denial that I was tired and needed to sleep. But I do think, our team's probably matured a bit in that sense as well. Nathan's always sort of advocated to sleep a bit more. And then, I've probably come on board with that mindset a bit more now. In these longer races, you have to kind of take those bigger sleeps. You can't get by on just sort of 2 hours, really. You just end up running yourself into the ground, and all those things that crop up on day 5, that higher, the higher rate of infections and injuries and foot troubles, they're all much more likely if you're not giving yourself that extra little bit of recovery.
Yeah. So 3 or 4 hours is actually, as you say, kind of almost luxurious, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Totally luxurious. Yeah. And we were really fortunate too, like most of our sleep. So there's one or two, one in particular, but the rest of them were actually really good quality sleeps, and that makes quite a big difference too. We were warm, we were dry. They were in, it was at a reasonable time of the night. We could maximize getting rid of the sort of the witching hours. So that worked out quite well for us.
Cool. And there's a bit of luck involved in that, but also good management, and you guys actually working hard in those places and sort of preparing.
That's right. I think it was absolutely. It's a bit of both, a bit of luck that, you come across a good place at the right time, but also we're looking forward, we're looking ahead and thinking, well, let's not sleep here. Let's get to there and sleep, or let's stop a bit earlier than what we normally would, because this is a really great place, and then we'll push on through. So,
Yeah, nice. Nutrition, it's a big one. Like it's a nutrition-a-thon, isn't it? Like if you're going to fuel your body well, you're going to go well. If you're not going to eat so well, you're going to have a gut that's going to be turning upside down.
And mouth ulcers.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I want to talk to you about as well. Like what a week's worth of food, especially when you're doing what you're doing, is pretty epic. What do you eat? Do you have hot food? How do you manage your nutrition through that witching hour, that 12 to 5 a.m. period?
So we have a real big range of food, and I don't think it would be much different to any other team out there. We just have a lot of savoury stuff, chips and nuts and crackers and things, and then we have lollies and biscuits. And but the game changer, I think, for us, and this sounds like it's an advertisement, but it's not. Nathan's got a freeze-dry meal company called Real Meals, and they're delicious meals, and you can actually rehydrate them with cold water. So we take a lot of them on course, and they have been a game changer. It's kind of hard to know what we did before we had them, and they're great. We don't generally have hot food out on course, but with the luxury of a supported race, we definitely have hot food in transition areas for sure.
Yeah, good. So that means you can just eat proper food, and that probably helps. Those mouth ulcers and things come out of just too much sugar.
Yeah, absolutely. And just that dry food, trying to put it in your mouth. And the other good thing about them is that they're really quite light. So if you're not entirely sure how long a stage is going to take, it's like, well, actually, I don't want to be hungry, so I'm just going to chuck in another meal, and that can last you 2 hours. It's quite a good sort of buffer. Yeah, they're really good.
Yeah, fantastic. That's your key go-to. How did you go about training for this? As I mentioned, you're a busy lady, lots on, and your house was damaged as well. How did you do that to be able to be at any sort of useful level to actually be able to compete at the level that you were doing?
It was really hard this time. Like, I would say that it's probably one of the hardest build-ups that I've had for all of the reasons that you just said. Nick is amazing. I don't really know how he puts up with me sometimes, but I guess I wouldn't. There are a couple of things. Normally I would have a training program for an event like this, and I didn't this time, and I really regret that, because it's my nature to feel like I should be maximizing every minute in the day. So if I'm at home and there's a spare hour, I kind of feel like I should go for a run, or I should be out pedaling. And so when I'm not doing that, I'm like sort of plagued by this, I should be out doing this, I should be out doing this. Whereas on a training program, you'd have those light days and be like, well, I've ticked off my thing for the day, that's cool, I'm just going to chill and hang out. So I found that quite challenging, and I wouldn't do it again. Doesn't matter how big or small the event was, but I think when you're juggling kids and work and life, then it's quite important to have something that's an easy structure for the rest of the family to see as well. We're also really fortunate in that my parents came down for a good chunk of time again to help out with the kids, and also just to give us a bit of support. They quite like following the racing and things, so they are keen to come and help out where they can. In terms of actually the training, I guess because I enjoy the training a lot, I just have a baseline throughout the whole year, really. And then just try and sort of ramp it up for sort of 6 weeks beforehand, and slot it into kind of try and slot it into life as much as possible. So, if we're driving away for a holiday, I'll get a head start on the bike, or, Nick will pick me up, or, he'll kick me out the door a couple of hours out the road, and I'll finish off on a bike or something like that. And You know, I definitely try. It's key for me to get in some big hikes with the pack on, and Nathan and I managed to get out for a few missions together, which was really good. And once, you know, I sort of got 4 or 5 decent days walking, like, you know, 12-hour give or take days, then I'm sort of, my feet are starting to feel kind of ready. So I managed to get that in.
Do you do any overnight or late night type stuff, or is actually that just going to fatigue you nowadays?
Yeah. Nathan said he used to do that sort of way back when in his first stint of professional racing, but it just takes too much out of you, you know, for the rest of the week. You can't train efficiently and you're too fatigued to do anything. So it's more detrimental than anything to be, you know, sleep depriving yourself in training. It did happen a couple of times, but it wasn't intentional. It's just they turned into bigger adventures than what they were planned. Yeah,
that's right. It's a good story, but not what we're planning for. What advice would you give for new athletes looking to take on Godzone? Because I know there's a lot of chat, and it's definitely sort of feels like it's kind of picking up and up, to be honest, in terms of the feel around and
it's pretty cool. It's
awesome. So, what are any sort of key tips at all for new people?
Well, I guess the biggest thing for me is having a really supportive team around you. You know, you kind of, you do go through some really hard times, and you kind of want to be around people who you can connect with. And because for me, that's what gets me through, you know, some of those hard times. So you want to have a good team around you. And being sort of proficient at navigation, you know, you've got to have somebody who's pretty comfortable with maps. And I think in terms of actually, you know, getting to the race start, I think I imagine it could be quite intimidating and overwhelming coming to such a big event, but you know, it is definitely achievable for a lot of people out there. And I think, you know, generally speaking, people probably underestimate their capabilities with these sorts of things. You know, I've heard so many people say, I couldn't do that because I need my sleep, you know, I need to. And that definitely doesn't apply. You know, that's not a reason to not try. That'd probably be my key things.
Yeah, good. So having a supportive team that are doing it for the same reasons, and then actually just having a crack at it. And I guess part of that is also, building up a little bit as well, isn't it? It doesn't need to be that, hey, I want to try and finish the whole lot. It's actually, I want to try and actually do as much as I can, or do other smaller races as well.
Yeah, I guess every team has got their own goal, and that, you know, I guess that would be the really important thing. You don't want half the team wanting to finish and half the team just wanting to get through the first couple of days. But
that's right.
What's up next, Sophie? Other than house and children and work and all those sorts of things on the adventure side of things?
Sleep as well.
That's as far as I've thought, is house and work and children and the washing that I need to hang out. No, I don't have anything on the horizon at the moment. You know, life is different to when I used to race, and it was all about, I guess before kids is probably what I mean. You know, it was all about sort of training and racing in the next one. But now I'm just happy just chilling and hanging out with the kids, and giving Nick a bit of time. He's been out hunting. Awesome. He's been out hunting already, so that's good.
That's awesome. Perfect. Hey, I really appreciate your time, Sophie, but we're not finished with it just yet. We've got a quick 5 that we're going to rattle through, and just off the top of your head, what can you come up with? So,
I wasn't warned about this.
Yeah, you were. Oh, God.
And they're not politician answers either. They've got to be direct to the point, and you know, we've got to have something out of it. So, what's your favourite event?
Across the board.
Godzone.
Can we ask you whether there's a favourite Godzone?
Probably the first one.
Right, from Fiordland.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, from Milford. Yeah.
Milford, yeah, fantastic. I'm going to just go straight in there. Do we have a favourite ice cream flavour? Guessing that you eat ice cream. Not everybody does.
Guessing what? That
you eat ice cream, because not everybody does.
Do you know what? Give me an apple and rhubarb crumble any day.
Okay. Right, which was my next sort of comma or favourite dessert, but I just thought, oh no.
Yeah.
Okay, so apple rhubarb crumble. Good.
Yeah.
A fancy meal out or a home cooked meal in?
Oh, home cooked meal in.
Fantastic. Favorite snack to eat while out on an adventure?
Crikey. Coffee? Does that count? Can I say coffee?
It depends. Is it like a coffee bike ride? Is that what we're doing? We're going for a ride and then having a coffee, or how's that coffee?
Yeah. Oh, well, when we go training, we stop and put the billy on and have a coffee by the river.
Okay, there we go. Fantastic.
And you're in a pretty fortunate part of the country, so this might be a pretty easy question, but your favourite place to run?
Oh, yeah, definitely some good trails here, but probably Kohi Point and Ohobi Beach. That's where I grew up. Best coastal run, best beach run, yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Awesome, Sophie. Hey, thanks for your time. Are we 2 kids down, or are we still 50-50 at the moment?
I think we're still 50-50.
Oh, no, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I better hang around and watch the rest of the show.
We're quite busy and important. Nice. Well, you take care. Thank you so much for joining us. Well done on a fantastic effort, and super awesome to be able to cheer you on, and look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Thank you, Richard. Thanks, Matt.
Cool. See you later, Sophie. Bye.
Kake.
Oh, sorry, a bit short there. So calm, isn't she? Like, you can just imagine, I guess, her persona during a race, when everything's going on, it's just like, no problem here. We'll just carry on, tick away, kind of thing.
Yep. Yep. No, that's right. But obviously deeply driven as well, and pushes herself hard, and that's why she has done so well as well, doesn't she? She doesn't give up, and she just keeps on working hard, which is awesome. And obviously it shows in the rest of life and all the other things she's up to.
Yeah. And I think that, that sort of experience just kind of shows year after year, doesn't it? I mean, we talk about it on different podcasts and those sorts of things. And when you can do a known race, you can identify when to kind of push hard and when to rest up, can't you? I guess adventure racing, you don't have that kind of foresight. I guess when you're bashing through forest, it's sort of kind of self-explanatory, but it must feel pretty good when you get out on that bike and the miles tick away a bit quicker, that's for sure.
Yeah, just getting it done, eh? Just let's get that done. Before we jump into catch up with Laura, I just want to have a quick sort of moment for a second, just to make sure that people that are listening to this are aware of our Signature Homes emerging athlete program that we've got up and running. So basically, this is for any up and coming athlete between the ages of 17 and 25 for a year's worth of coaching and training support, strength training, nutrition, etc., to basically help them go from where they are now to where they want to go. And you don't need to be a New Zealand-based athlete. You need to be just, hey, these are my goals, and this is what I want to do, and this is what I'm trying to be, etc. So buzz us an email if you can't find that through our social media feed. And we've got a bunch of people that have put their name down already, but throw your name down. Super excited that Signature Homes have come on board with us. So make sure you find out about that as well if you haven't already. If you know somebody or you're that person that, hey, that could be for me.
Yep. No, really good opportunity for somebody to get on board and set those goals, those big, hairy, audacious goals that we all have, and get into it.
Yeah, good stuff. So we've got Laura Pattie, who's going to come on the show. Laura is had a crack. This was actually a second crack at Godzone. Her first Godzone didn't last particularly long, and she ended up I think one of her teammates pulled out, and then she ended up going to run the Motatapu Ultra like the next day because she had all this pent-up energy. So she wanted to go deep and see what she was capable of in Godzone, and I think she definitely got that this time around. Is she sitting in the background there, Matt?
Yep. Now let's bring her on. Laura, how are you this evening?
Yes, good, thank you.
It's good. All recovered?
Getting there. Yep, I've had two days now of no naps, so going well. Yeah.
Just about time to go back to work then.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Talk us through it, Laura. It's a big mission. What was your goals coming into the event?
Our team goals were to try that full course. So we wanted to try and finish as a complete team. Was definitely what we were aiming for. So to push ourselves as far as we could as a team, definitely we're all on that same page. Yeah.
Nice. And why? Why Godzone?
Number one, I just love the adventure. So it's choosing those races that you like to train for, really. So the lead up was just as important as the race, and super enjoyed all the missions, making the most of what's out there. And then there's always that little bit if, what, and maybe, really. A team race adds another dynamic to an individual race. So, yeah, just being able to push yourself, but also just sort of enjoying the outdoors and everything else you enjoy. I enjoy mountain biking, pack rafting, super fun, and then hiking. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, good. And you're not averse to a solo mission, but you definitely enjoy hanging out with a few teammates as well.
Yeah, even when I do a solo mission, I end up finding friends. So I consider myself a fairly social person. Yeah.
What did the training look like for you in the lead up?
Well, we had a lot. Obviously, the big goal was going to be the ultra run, so the Revenant in January. So we did a lot of time on feet, which for this particular Godzone was a godsend for sure. And then in that short space in between, we had 7 weeks after that to A, recover, and then B, get some time in the saddle. So sort of one big run. So that was all ticking along quite nicely, until 3 weeks out when I rolled my ankle pretty bad. So and had that pretty black and blue. Yeah.
Yeah, that's that whole thing about actually getting to the start line is often the toughest part of any event. How did that? So, I mean, we talked through that and sort of figured it out and did what we can. I mean, it was almost a positive in the end, wasn't it, for you? Actually, not being able to do too much in the lead up and kind of hoping your ankle was going to be okay.
Yeah, pretty much. It made me back off pretty hard, which was good, and put my feet up, but at the same time, well, I suppose gave me more time to be organised too, which is quite nice. So in the end, I got away with it extraordinarily well, and didn't have one twinge out there, so blessing. Yeah,
which is a tribute to you in terms of that rehab that you did. But I did want you to get an X-ray when you showed me a picture of it because it looked awful. So yeah, that's awesome that you're able to not only line up but do well and not for it not to be an issue. That's awesome.
Yeah, followed all my physio's orders, got it ultrasounded, and we had some ligaments torn, but we knew which ones, and we knew. Did what everyone told me to do. Tried to be a good patient, pretty much. Everything they told me to do apart from not do the race. Pretty much,
yeah. Were you nervous standing on the start line? Often that's a place that there's a few butterflies going on. What was happening for you on the start line this time around?
What's happening to me on the start line? I didn't get a time to be nervous. I didn't have the best start to the race. Probably a liability.
That was a leading question because I think I knew the answer. Tell us about that start line.
So we got caught up in some roadworks, which just meant we were going to have an extra half-hour buffer when we got there, which means we didn't. So it was all very rushed, getting the pack raft line up, and unfortunately in wave 3, you're parked quite a wee way from the start. So by the time we walked it all the way down, which is a good 7-8 minute walk with your pack raft, put the pack raft near, about to walk to the start line, and I didn't have the maps, compass, or the race passport on me. So the 30 seconds till start time, and our car's about 3k away. I ran some probably a good 3 minute 30Ks there to go and find it, and we were the single little group of 2 pack rafts going in between wave 3 and wave 4. Off we went 5 minutes late. So probably shouldn't have panicked so much for an 8-day race to get started, but anyway, we laughed about it later. But I didn't have time to get nervous. No.
And the boys were like, "You left it. Where is it?" So then you're off.
Yeah, pretty much. I was like, "Oh no, sorry." It wasn't the first time I had a few faux pas. I lost my bib for a while, and it was actually down my wet weather pants for about an hour.
Okay, right. That's it. And after that, I would imagine that the maps weren't yours, and the race passport wasn't yours, the compass wasn't yours, or how did that go for the rest of the race?
It was still mine. I tried to offer that race passport away a few times, but I just said don't lose it, so I tried my hardest not to. I never lost it. I just put it in really safe places that I couldn't find it.
Yeah. That whole
it made it
thing.
to the finish line, but it was a bit stressful. So bag's not.
Nobody wanted the responsibility. They'll give it to you. Thanks.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And at that third stage, 155 k's of pack rafting and trekking. It was pretty epic. You also ran into a few locals.
Yeah.
On the lake as well. Tell us about this.
Yeah, we ran to Bean Sprout on the coast. So the Sprouts have a self-contained home next to one of the dock huts. So they came out and said hi to us, and they're all connected to some Satlink satellite internet, and so they're all following our teams and giving us the down low on everyone. So we had a chat with them, and then we got to Lake Alabaster. There's a guy in a dinghy and he was handing out beers to competitors. He doesn't like beer, but he gets given it. So a few teams actually did take it. We should have, we didn't, but a few teams took some beers off him. And then if Richie ever listens to this, he needs to go back to Alabaster and give this guy his autograph. But he was actually secretly on the lake with a vivid in his hand, waiting for Richie's team to try and get Richie's signature. So he helped us pass a good 40 minutes just chatting to us, trout fishing, while we pack crafted the lake. But then he's been messaging the sprouts on the coast, and yeah, so they all know each other, and it was just great to see the locals loving it, following us, cheering us on. And there were some water aid stations people put outside their houses, and it just means a lot. So locals getting behind it was so cool. Yeah,
that's super cool. But Richie had already pulled out by that stage, so he'd never actually arrived across the lake. So that's pretty gutting, isn't it?
No, so yeah, that's what I mean. If he ever listens to this, then you got to go find the man. He's got an airstrip in there somewhere.
Classic. There's plenty of Type 2 fun in any adventure race, and the other bits that are actually just not Type 2 fun at all, they're just downright ugly. Did you have any dark moments for yourself during the race that you're like, oh, that on reflection you can have a laugh, but on the time they weren't that flash?
Yeah, definitely. Like, not dark where I didn't think I could keep going, but dark as in just a stage 3 when we were doing that Hidden Falls Creek part. So we were averaging probably 500 meters in an hour. It went on for a long time. It was raining. It was dark. We had camped in a swamp. We didn't know how far away from the river we could have been. Big shout out to Team Meridian there, helping. I think the two teams got along really well, and we sort of supported each other through there was a lot of hazards and danger out there, and it suddenly didn't become about Godzone anymore. It just became about getting the team out. It was taking longer, just about being safe, and suddenly you were like, pretty much stuff this race, we just got to look after each other. So this is no longer a race. This is us being in the bush with likely going to run out a bit of food. It is wet and miserable. We're sleeping in a swamp. So when the next morning we got up and we made it to the river, I was fine, but I definitely just cried, and I cried probably for a good 10 minutes, just put my head on a teammate's shoulder, and he's like, you're right. I was like, I will be fine. I think it was relief. I think it was a lot more pent up inside of you than you realise. So, but happy to keep moving, but just needed to let it out. It's not all magic out there. Yeah, definitely had a couple of moments where I was just like, oh my goodness, I can't believe we got out of that bush.
But on the flip side of that, have you got a story that actually this was amazing?
Oh, absolutely. We had some really cool sunrises. Those mountain bikes, although they were long, and typical Godzone, it's always longer than what they state. That's fine. That's how they make it work. But the scenery, even in that big stage 3, coming over Park Pass, like looking around, and we did take time as a team. We'd remind each other, have a look around, see where we are, and actually just really enjoy it. And man, to get there was so satisfying, and the views are stunning, and obviously the finish line's pretty sweet. Yeah,
good. And you do like a bit of chat, and it's the social element of any event or any adventure. How was the last beach, 19Ks on the beach at the end? How was that for you?
Yeah, it was good. I bumped into a couple of people that I knew, so I got I just kind of was like, I suppose my frame of mind at that point was, we've kind of made it, let's just enjoy this beach. And I got chatting as I do, and the boys wanted to pull finger, which is cool, and sort of get a bit of a jog on and minimise the pain, and get to the finish as soon as possible. So I had to leave my yarns for later, and do that later on, and then go on and have a jog with them. So yeah, we ended up jog walking all the way to the finish, and definitely cutting in probably a good 40 minutes off our time there. So I think we all won. That was my time. I had to sort of pull up my bootstraps and get going. Yeah.
There's a question here that's come up from one of our Facebook watchers, and the question is,
Oh, sorry, that one just cut out.
Okay, so there's a question from a support crew do a lot of work for you, or do you do most of it yourself?
Oh, good question. You could run that 2 ways. What do I think works best? If you look after your own gear and they looking after food and drink, we probably got a little bit guilty of getting them to look after too much of our stuff to make it run efficiently. So there was big learning curves and a new team there. So I would say it's got to be 50-50 still. They're not there to mop up stuff for you completely, or else you will be inefficient. Yeah, for sure. So you've almost got to break down those roles a little bit more, so that they're shoving food in front of your face, eat it, looking after getting your stuff clean when you're away, but you're sort of managing your gear to repack, I think possibly would be the best way, which we got there eventually. But yeah, it's pretty cozy in transition too, when someone's offering you coffee and hot chocolates and stuff. Yeah. It's definitely a trap you can fall into. Yeah.
Sure.
Excellent. Well, what's next for you? Where are you off to? Where are you off to next? Have you got, is there another Godzone in the pipeline? Have you got other sort of adventures on the cards? What's happening next?
Technically, after it has been a pretty epic summer for us, and Rich has been doing an amazing job at guiding me along. So there's some R&R to be had, and just some like fun missions is what's on my calendar really. So where you might only walk for 4 hours, and we're going to spend a whole afternoon at a hut and do some fun. There's definitely another nudge at the Revenant in me, so I want to go back for round 2 But otherwise, I kind of call myself semi-retired at the moment until I'm ready to come out of retirement. That's how I cope.
Right, so we look forward to, ta-da, I'm out of retirement, everybody.
Yeah, just tracking. Here I am. Yeah.
Excellent. Hey, that's awesome, Laura. Fantastic effort. Love your stories, and stoked to hear that you're recovering well and you're on the front foot and not so many nana naps in the last couple of days.
Perfect.
After stuff, all the best for the next adventure.
Awesome. Thanks, Dean. Thanks, everybody.
Okay. Thanks, Laura. See you later.
Cheers.
It's the sort of event that just must have so many stories. You know, I guess you think of people that have done it once or done half of it even, you know, some of the people that do get short coursed and still miss out a bunch, they must still have so many stories to tell. And
the worse it goes, the better the stories are often as well, aren't they? That's part of
I think
leaving your map in the car before the start line. I didn't ask Sophie about that, but that's pretty funny.
Yeah, things you learn. It's failure's just feedback, right? It's
it is,
every time you're learning something.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So who else we got on the show tonight? One more guest.
One more guest. Yeah. So pretty stoked to manage to grab Warren Bates on the show. So Warren is the creator, the organizer, the man behind the epic course, etc. So yeah, really keen to have a bit of a chat to Warren about sort of how this come about, and obviously the way that Godzone has grown over the last 10 years as well.
Just before I bring him on, he's probably the sort of person that's got heaps of mates but heaps of enemies over about a 7-day period.
Yes, that's right. I talked to Adam as offsider, and he said he couldn't talk tonight because he's going into Fiordland to repent all his sins from the previous week. So
let's bring him in. Warren, how are we tonight?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. Yeah. As I said, probably the best month of my life is the month after Godzone. So I'm feeling a little bit less stressed, but happy.
Good. So on reflection, like obviously any event organizer, it's a massive deal. And obviously I think I mentioned earlier on that you must be pretty stressful having like competitors strewn across the whole of the South Island. It's a big job. I don't know how much were they spread out at their most spread out point? Was it 400 kilometers? Is it more than that?
Yeah, days and kilometers.
Yeah.
And if we didn't short course people, the difference between Avaya and Sophie's team and the back markers would be colossal. So it's a big exercise in logistics and personnel management and safety, walking that tightrope of risk and return. Yes. And we just sort of juggle. Most people are signing up for a real adventure, I guess, and they don't want to be. I don't think they want things sugar coated, but we're also mindful of what can go wrong, and it's a bit of a balancing act. But I think we've pretty much got most things about right over 10 years, and we're still going.
And what I love about what you've done, sort of as it's evolved from like used to be the Southern Traverses, is just the way that you get people to the finish line and people to have positive experiences. And no matter what's gone on before, if the teammates pulled out, or actually you're going to need to be short course, but you can still get across that finish line and see your supporters and have that positive experience. I think you do a super job at that.
Yeah, I've always been of the opinion and actually think the guys at the back of the field actually have a harder job of it than the guys at the front who can just, Chris doesn't put a foot wrong and they blitz through the course and there they go, 4 or 5 days. And then you think about the poor people who are out there for 10 days, death by 1,000 cuts really. Yes. And, they're having a much tougher time of it. They have to carry more food because a stage which takes those teams 2 days takes them 4. And their kit isn't quite well dialed in and they get foot problems because they're on their feet for 4 days instead of 2. So the problems compound. So we've got a lot of respect for those people who do it at that end of the course. And so for us, it's, as I've said it before, it's Godzone isn't really a race as such. It's an experience, or like climbing Mount Everest. And you turn up to do your personal challenge. And this season, the weather shines and you're in good condition and you get to the summit. You turn up for the next 5 seasons and the weather's unkind and you're not in the right condition and you fail. And it isn't a race. It's just your own experience. And 90% of the people turning up are really just trying to kick off a full course finish. And then there's a few at the pointy end who are looking for podiums and stuff. And, I guess the ethos of the event is around that sense that anybody 70 or 17 years old can come and have a go at their personal Everest. And lots fail. In the history of the event, more have failed than have finished. But that's what it is. And hopefully people will continue to try and give it a go.
Yep. And that's fantastic that it's there and it's doable, but there's a lot of things that got to go right. There's a bit of luck involved as well, managing how much gear, even just personally, individually for one person, but times that by 4 across 4 people across that many stages. It's a big undertaking. And obviously that's part of experience gives you, is decreasing the chances of things going wrong and managing yourself and your team and your gear and everything better as well. How do you go about planning a course like this? Like there was a lot of work, like all the way through. It was like, well, this was going to be epic. This was going to be bigger than what we've done. But obviously that point to point sort of nature. How did that come about?
Well, I had an idea for quite some time that for the 10th edition, we needed to do something that was not out there, but a little bit different. Yep. Traditionally, we would go to a host location, whether it's Kaikoura, Wanaka, Tasman, wherever it is, pick your place. We decide to showcase the event there. We jump on board with those people. We do a showcase of that region, then we move on. And that clearly doesn't really work with the coast to coast initiative. And so we were given carte blanche really to go wherever we wanted. And realistically, I thought for this edition, it was going to come down south somewhere. And when I started doing my research, I realized there's not too many easy ways to cross the Southern Alps. And so that sort of like drilled it down to a fewer locations. And then I really had this idea that I wanted to do as much variety of terrain that we could cram in without too many of the stages feeling like they were just transit legs. Because like we've done an amazing section and then bugger, we've got to do 200 Ks bike riding because we've got to get to somewhere else. Yep. So it was really the skill was in trying to go, well, no, those bike legs actually offered something or gave something back to the team that were rewarding. And whether that was the views or the descent. And that's the skill in creating a course where you don't just have kick-ass stages and then just desperately bad ones, that all of them add some kind of value, whether it's a navigational challenge or, whatever it is. So yeah, and we knew it was going to be long because it's quite hard to go from one side to the other without, without some doomsday stage where you just pedal 300 kilometers on the road to get to the end. But it's the interesting part of the job actually. And, it's been a privilege for me to actually over the last 10 years to explore so much amazing New Zealand backcountry and to piece these things together. And I guess, in the early days of course development, I'm a little bit like a failed author where there's a bin behind me with lots of screwed up pieces of paper. But over the years, I've just got a little bit better at knowing what works and what doesn't work. And the pile near the bin is a little bit smaller than it used to be. So hopefully it works.
How much of the course do you recce you actually go out and see yourself and do yourself in one hit?
In one hit, none of it.
Or like for example, that 155 counts, you go and do pieces of that, or did you like? Yeah.
Oh no, all of it, all of it. I mean,
to
some extent. I mean, the reality is, for example, the Air Mountains was a big trekking stage in the middle of the race, stage 5, and the reality is there's multiple route options that people took. And so it's impractical for me to go and recce all of it. But we might look at it and go, well, first things first, I need to know that there's a legit line through. And we might do that in 2 parts, or we might do it in 1 mission. And so, yeah, I'm still just about fleet of foot enough to be able to knock most of these things off. But, you know, I'm a fair weather traveler now, so we'll tend to do it when the weather's good and we're feeling fresh and we fancy doing a mission. And we still make mistakes. And I still, for this Godzone, I went and trekked with Adam through the Silver Peaks, you know, and spent a number of hours up there looking at routes. And we didn't even go there in the end. And so you have these wasted missions. But I think it's important that we go and see what it is the teams are doing. And I guess whether it meets the adventure and safety thresholds that we kind of aspire to.
Yeah, you need to have a feel for what they're actually going to go through and how they're going to be feeling and all those sorts of things to put it together, as you said. What was a highlight or a sort of key moment in this year's event that really, I guess, means that you keep doing your job and keep doing this? Because it's as you mentioned, like back end of March and April are your favorite months. What was the key highlight this time around?
That nobody died. And I say that slightly flippantly, of course, but that every year, you know, like we run the tightrope, as I said, more so than possibly any other event in New Zealand of risk and return. And we put people into challenging locations and we ask them to be responsible, but sometimes people are not responsible. And Sophie would be able to tell you her own experiences of traveling across flooded rivers and things that you do where you take a second thought and think that wasn't the right thing to do. And we have teams who aren't the best paddlers in the world who just blasé go down the rivers. They don't check any rapids and they're just not following protocols. So we're always mindful of those things going on. So people getting home safely, yeah, we're always going to get injuries and stuff like that. And that sort of goes with the territory, helicopter evacuations. Yeah, whatever. Yeah. But I think outside of that, what filled me with the best feelings about the race was actually the amount of 20-somethings or younger, and even early 30s, and these amount of teams racing now. And this is a sport in a very different position than it was when, you know, we kicked off Godzone back in 2010, 11, 12. You know, there would primarily be 40, 50-somethings, old buggers like me who'd been doing it for a long time or had a bit of nostalgia for it. And all of a sudden now we're standing at Lake Ellery on the first day, and I was going, God, that's a young team. Good God, they look young. Oh my God, who are they? They look young. And every team after team after team was just like, jeepers, these are kids. And they're doing amazingly well. Yes. And that to me is a sign of a sport in good health. You know, it's appealing to a future generation of kids, and they'll go off and inspire. And then you get to the finish line and those youngsters are coming through and there's youngsters cheering them on going, these guys are amazing. I want to give this a crack. And that's always been our mission, really. Is like, that's why we've got 100,000 people on social media across the board now. And our media messages has always been like, come and give adventure racing a go. It's an awesome experience. It's very rewarding. It's tough. There's nothing else quite like it. And in an age of spin, false reality, and all the crap that goes on in everybody's life, it doesn't get more legit than Godzone. And you know, I just think that feeling of watching these kids racing now and thinking they're the future champions, not just in New Zealand, but of the world. If they stick at it, great. It's good for the sport, and it's pleasing for us to see, and hopefully, continue doing it.
And just great personal development as well. Like across the board, no matter what age, people are just learning stuff about themselves and working in teams and all those things that come with that as well, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, if you're 16, 17, 18-year-old, and you've just done 8-9 days of Godzone, you've got no fear of anything in your life, honestly. You're up hidden falls in the middle of the night. You're making decisions for yourself. You've got a group of people around you, and you've got to learn to trust them. Sometimes you're going to make some tough decisions. Even the decisions about whether you pull out or not. If you're injured, is it the right call? You're sitting there hovering your hand over the button going, do we pull the helicopter in or can I limp out?
Yep.
They're real decisions. And, that's how you grow as a person. And I honestly think, I've experienced it through my own kids at the moment, is that they often learn an awful lot more from their failures than their successes. And if you come to Godzone often enough, you're going to have a lot of failures. So it's a great place to learn.
Fantastic. That's a good selling point. Feet were a big issue with teams this year, with especially that long trekking stage, and obviously the teams that took a bit longer. It just gets harder as well. Could you explain, like, obviously your experience adventure racer in your own right, but also being involved in this event for a number of years as well, some key rules about how to manage your feet, especially during a wet multi-day stage like that 155k stage 3 in this year's event?
Yeah, well, I think it's an interesting point. Before I think about the feet, a very unpleasant subject, but to me, it's kind of like always struck me that the more extreme the event that you do, and that's either distance, heat, or altitude, say, for example, then the less time you need to think about training and the more time you need to think about conditioning. And I know there's a blur between the two, but I remember sort of, from some of my own historical kind of races, races in places like Utah and in Brazil, where it was crazy hot or crazy humid. And I came away from those races going, I shouldn't have even bothered doing much training. All I should have done is spent weeks in the spa, sort of the sauna, and just been absolutely cooking myself, because coping with the temperature was like the most. And you go and race in Ecuador, and the lowest point of the course is 3,500 meters, and half the course is at 5,000 meters, and you're wasting your time even thinking about being fit if you're not acclimatized to the altitude. We went out there a few weeks before to get ready for it. You're really, really going to be up against it. No matter how fit you are, you just feel sick as a dog from the get-go. And I look at a race like this where it's 10 days long, 9 days long, 8 days long, and most of the teams are going to take 8. It's almost so long that the fitness is something you do early part of the year, but everything happening in that last few months is all about going, how do I prepare myself for the physicality of it? And if you're load hauling 20 kg, 2 wet pack rafts, lots of food, your lower limbs, your back, your feet are going to take an absolute pasting. And you have to ask yourself the question, what does your training regime look like? If you're running to work or biking, is that really preparing you for wading over logs, going through swamps, carrying 20 kg, like time and time again? And it's probably not. And it's no surprises that Avaya and those guys who are so experienced at that load hauling and carrying those weights in difficult terrain didn't suffer the lower leg injuries. Their feet were in relatively good condition. And, that allows you to not necessarily enjoy the experience, but at least to be able to think about something other than how sore your feet are every time you put your feet down. Yes. So I think conditioning is such a vital part of it. And I think, anything over 3-4 days, it should be such an important part of your preparation, getting ready for those things. And it seems a funny thing, but I still see people now like coming out after the first bike ride and their arse is so sore that they can't even put it down on the saddle. And you're going, what have you been doing? You need to sort of think about how you can deal with that. And if you're someone that's particularly prone to that, then you need to be looking at alternatives, going, don't carry a backpack, get all the weight on the bike, because every bit of weight you put in on your back, which is just being driven through your saddle, is just going to increase the discomfort. I mean, one thing from the feet perspective that really worked well for me back in the day, because I never had great feet, was something that Ian Edmund actually put me onto a long, long time ago, was that in the 6-8 weeks before the race, I just go completely barefoot everywhere, and I would just build up time on concrete, and it would be painful for the first 10 minutes, and then 2 days later, I'm running for 20 minutes on the concrete. 3 days later, I'm running for 30 minutes on the concrete. And it's amazing how tough your feet will get. It's that period of kind of like adaptation, recovery. And you're not looking for feet that end up looking like, hunks of wood. They need to be tough but supple. And I think there's a bit of work that people could do to actually allow themselves to go, well, I know it's going to be tough, and I know a lot of this event is in my head, but if I'm not moaning every time my feet hit the ground, I'm not complaining every time I put my bum on the saddle, I'm not really sore every time my backpack goes on my shoulders, then everything else can actually seem like quite a breeze.
Yes. And you can end up enjoying that experience so much more rather than just suffering, etc. during it.
Yeah, well, there's plenty enough suffering rather than to add to it. And, you should be doing everything in your hand, everything in your power, to remove those little niggles. And sometimes it is the little niggles which just eat away at you day after day after day. And it's like, this is so painful. It's just unpleasant. And yeah, there were plenty of problem feet at the event, and yeah, anything you can do to mitigate that is a win.
Yeah. So on that whole, hey, we're looking to do this for the first time. You've already talked about, I think, a number of them in terms of like conditioning your feet, conditioning your bum, getting your, I guess, just your systems in place. But do you have some key kind of pitfalls, mistakes that first timers or people that aren't so experienced tend to make, either from just a actual race strategy sort of situation?
Well, first thing I'd say is, I mean, it's a statement the obvious, but a lot of teams just come in straight and go to the pure race because they see it as like the holy grail. And
Yes.
a lot of them fail. And it's like, well, there's a pursuit race there, which is still really, really difficult.
Yeah.
And maybe is the place for those guys to cut their teeth first time out. But, you know, we try not to be elitist. And if you want to come and give the pure race a crack, then I say it every year, but, you know, most people fail because they make mistakes with navigation, and they're ill prepared for what's ahead. And then the third thing, which a lot of teams get wrong, is team dynamics. And every year we say to people, you know, have a sit down, ensure you're all on the same page. And the reality is, I don't like confrontation. I want to sit down with these three compatriots of mine, and I want to feel all warm and fuzzy that we've got a common goal. But in the back of my head, I'm thinking, now I want to win. I want a podium. And I don't tell them. And then you get halfway through the race, and those three laggards are going, well, we just want to just cruise on through, and we're happy with the short course. We're broken. And those sorts of things can lead to problems, I guess. But I think you just got to, we've had examples of people who've come to the event first time out. I think we had a vets team that came in a number of years ago, and they raced real smart. They used their brains, and, you know, they were adequately fit, and they just ticked on through it and made a very good fist of it. So, I mean, obviously, if you can get to someone like yourselves and actually develop a program and stick to the program and have a decent conditioning period, you know, in that lead up, I think that makes a lot of sense. You just got to be realistic about your goals. And for most teams, that really is just you know, just come to a full course finish if you can make it.
Yes, yeah, fantastic.
Some awesome words of wisdom. It's Godzone 10. What's up next? Is it Godzone 11 or what else is on the cards, or is it a bit early to talk about that now?
No, we've signed contracts. There is going to be a chapter 11. I always say never again, but I just sort of feel while New Zealand, if there's a desire for me and the team to put this on, and the sport is in a good state, and we're starting to see these youngsters through, then I think it's important for us to continue leading and pushing things forward. And we've got some developments that we'd like to do, which would continue to raise the profile and use the sort of media reach and the social media reach that we have, which is by far the biggest of this sport anywhere in the world, to actually say that New Zealand continues to be the home of adventure racing, and we're going to produce these future champions. And we want to look at some stuff around kit, and we want to look at some stuff around race formats. We want to look at stuff around some serious prize money to hopefully elevate this into the national consciousness, to say being an adventure race is a cool thing to be.
Yep, fantastic. That's exciting.
And I guess just one more comment, I guess, is that probably, I mean, very, very fortunate, I guess, for you guys to be able to run the event this year. But I guess it's pretty cool that whilst there were some internationals within the field, a large majority of it was Kiwis, right? So pretty cool to have that sort of uptake of locals.
Oh yeah, no, the demand is amazing. We didn't know. You never know before you open up entries, but we literally sold out in like a minute. And you know, at one point we had like 140 teams registered, you know, in that first morning, and we're like, this is unreal. Like, no expedition race ever in the history of the sport in like 30 plus years has ever done much more than 100. We've been close a number of times, and you know, it's just crazy. And we can, you know, bar COVID, even if it was just been Kiwi teams, we'd have been at 100. And we've got 35 international teams just sitting there rolling over for next year. So it's really positive. And I do feel like internationals feel like coming to Godzone in New Zealand is the holy grail of adventure racing. Sure, it's expensive. It's a pain in the backside to get here and stuff, but they want to race against Kiwis. They want to race in New Zealand. It's the ultimate test. And so hopefully we'll see a load of them here next year, and it'll be really exciting.
Yeah, fantastic. Warren, love what you do. And just the way that you've driven the sport and over the last 10 years, really, it's a testament to you and your team on how those youngsters are coming through, and you've got this big, hairy goal that's sitting out there, and it's not something that, like, just to say that you've actually finished it is pretty amazing. So yeah, hats off to you. I love what you do, and well done for challenging a whole bunch of different people to see what they can actually do for themselves, and have all that personal growth and a bunch of fun and adventures along the way. So really appreciate your time, and all the best for having a bit of R&R. Hopefully you got a few nana naps and things lined up for the next few days, and look forward to catching up with you again soon.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks very much.
Nice work, Warren. We'll see you next year.
Yeah, cool.
Cheers, Warren. Thank you.
Some pretty good insights, isn't it? When we talk about
G'd up? It's hard to do these conversations and go, I'm not sure if how's the start line looking for next year.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, isn't it? You kind of your body your mind processes things. It's like you think about these fabulous sunrises that everyone tonight has spoken about, and the cool scenery you go to, but then there's the food and the bad feet and the carrying a pack raft for 3 days and those sorts of things. But that's just the challenge, isn't it? And that you've got to put yourself out there and get into it. And
right.
we talk.
As Laura honestly said, some tears for 10 minutes after not sure how that was going to go, and then also the 500 meter that's 500 meters an hour sort of thing. That's not a very good rate of progression, is it? That's going to take a while.
No. I mean, one of my I guess life mottos is adapt and overcome, and I guess there's nothing more would be true about an event like this, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, pretty impressive. So I'll look forward to your inquiry tomorrow morning about getting that conditioning program sorted, Matt.
Yep. I'll put the shoes away and we'll be into it. Sorry, better not go and say that to Oscar. It's like, I want to buy some bare feet. Where do I get those from?
Exactly. So a massive thanks to Sophie, to Laura, and to Warren for joining us. They're fantastic insights tonight, and well done on just a fantastic Godzone each of them had. It was absolutely brilliant, and all those others that are out there pushing the boundaries, having a crack at it. Hats off to all of you. Absolutely fantastic. And thanks for holding the show together tonight, pushing the buttons, Matt. You've done super well. Problem. And until next time, Team CP, your endurance coaching specialist, and big thanks to Solomon for helping us put tonight's show together as well.
Yep. All right, you go and put your feet up, Rich, and see you at the next show.
Yep. Over and out. Cheers, Matt.
See ya.